My name's Lauren, 35, female, and I'm writing this with my hands still shaking because I keep replaying the exact sound of a bedroom door slamming like it was a gunshot. Not the dramatic kind of shaking either. The stupid, small, humiliating kind. The kind where you can't even open the child-proof cap on a bottle of ibuprofen because your fingers won't cooperate. That's where I'm at. I've been married to Mark, 38, male, for 4 years. He came with his daughter, Ava, 12, female, who came with this invisible third person in our house. Her mom, Tessa, 34, female. Tessa isn't physically here most of the time, but she is everywhere anyway. In the way Ava pauses before she calls me anything. In the way Mark softens his voice when her name comes up. In the way we all keep an imaginary chair open at the table for someone who regularly doesn't show. Mark has majority custody. That's the clean, legal version. The lived version is, I do the school pickups. I do dentist appointments. I'm the one with the teacher's email pulled up at 10:47 p.m. because Ava forgot about a science project that's due tomorrow and suddenly needs a trifold board, glue sticks, and the will to live. I'm the one who knows she hates the orange yogurt but will eat the strawberry one, and that she needs the blue sneakers on gym days because the black ones feel weird when she runs. I'm the one who sits on the edge of her bed when she's sick and rubs her back while she pukes, and I'm the one who still has to ask Mark sometimes, quietly, if she's taken her allergy meds. And I'm not saying that like I'm some saint. I'm saying it because that's the part that makes this hurt in this specific ugly way. Because I've never tried to replace her mom. I don't even want to. I just live here. I take care of what needs taking care of. Yesterday was a math packet, just a stupid packet. Pages of fractions and word problems in little boxes to show work. Ava was on her phone, scrolling like her thumb was powered by spite. I said, "Phone away until the packet's done." She sighed, eyes rolling so hard I swear I heard it. She didn't move, so I took the phone. Not ripped it out of her hands like a villain. Just held my hand out and said, "Give it to me." She slapped it into my palm like she wanted it to hurt. Then she crossed her arms and said, "You can't just grab my stuff." And something in me snapped into that cold, exhausted mode. "I absolutely can if you're not doing what you're supposed to." That's when she said it. "You're not my real mom. You don't get to boss me around." I know, before anyone lectures me. Yes, I know kids say that. I know 12-year-olds are basically walking raw nerves with Wi-Fi. I've heard versions of it before. But yesterday it hit different. Like she found the one spot in my ribs that's already bruised. Maybe because Tessa missed the last 2 scheduled visits and didn't call. Maybe because I was the one who had to explain why her mom didn't show up to the school play, watching Ava scan the audience like she was searching for oxygen. So I didn't just respond. I retaliated. I said, "Your real mom hasn't shown up in weeks because she's using again." Ava went completely still, like someone hit pause. Her face didn't crumple right away. It went blank first, and that blankness scared me more than if she'd screamed. I kept going anyway, because once the words are out, they drag more words with them. "She keeps choosing drugs," I said. "I'm the one here every day. I'm the one packing lunches and signing permission slips while she disappears." Ava whispered, "That's not true." And I should have stopped. I should have swallowed it. I should have walked away and let Mark handle it. Instead, I said the line that I can't unsay. "She picked drugs over you." The air in the room changed, not louder. Just heavier, like the house itself inhaled. Ava looked at me like she wanted to set me on fire with her eyes. Then she walked to her room, slow, controlled, like she was holding herself together with string, and shut the door so hard a framed photo in the hallway tilted crooked on its nail. That crooked photo is still there. I haven't fixed it. I keep staring at it like it's evidence. 10 minutes later, Mark's tires hit the driveway too fast. Ava had texted him. He came home early, face tight like he'd been punched. "What did you say?" he asked. I told him. I didn't lie. I didn't soften it. I think part of me wanted him to be on my side so badly, I thought honesty would force it. Mark just stared at me and said, very quietly, "You don't get to decide when she hears that." And I said, because I was still angry and still stupid, "She's 12. She can handle the truth." He shook his head like I was missing the point on purpose. That's not the point, he said. You used it. You used it to win a homework fight. And I swear, in that moment, it felt like I was the kid being scolded. Like all the years of pickups and fevers and late-night projects didn't count for anything because I'd stepped on a landmine I didn't place. Mark slept on the couch last night. This morning he took Ava to school without asking if I wanted to come. We usually leave together. When I said, "Bye, sweetie," Ava didn't answer. She didn't even look at me. And now I'm sitting here with her phone on the kitchen counter, face down like a dead thing, thinking about how one sentence can split a house clean in half. Because I told the truth. And I said it like a weapon. And I can already feel the fallout coming, like thunder you hear before the rain even starts. The house didn't explode the next day. It got quiet. And somehow, that was worse. Mark didn't yell. He didn't slam cabinets or accuse me of being cruel. He just recalibrated. Like I'd revealed something about myself and he was mentally adjusting the settings. That night, he knocked on Ava's door and went inside without me. I stood in the hallway for a second, feeling ridiculous, like some outsider hovering near a private meeting. I could hear low voices. Ava crying. Mark's voice soft and steady. I caught one sentence through the door. You didn't deserve to hear it like that. Like that. Not it's not true. Not she was wrong. Just timing. Delivery. But still, something shifted in me hearing that. He came out 20 minutes later and walked straight past me into the kitchen. Didn't look angry, just disappointed, which somehow felt heavier. She's really upset, he said. I know. She asked if her mom doesn't love her. That sentence landed in my chest like a dropped brick. I never said she doesn't love her, I snapped too quickly. I said she keeps choosing drugs. Mark closed his eyes briefly. Lauren, you connected those dots for her. I opened my mouth to argue and realized I had no defense that didn't sound selfish. Later that week, I tried to fix it. That's my toxic trait. If something cracks, I immediately start gluing. I knocked on Ava's door 2 nights after it happened. She was on her bed, phone in hand again. Mark had given it back the next morning. Can we talk? I asked. Silence. I went in anyway. That was mistake number 1. I didn't mean it the way it came out, I started. Addiction is complicated. Your mom is sick. Stop, she said quietly. I should have stopped. Instead, I kept going, because I thought clarity would help, because I wanted her to understand I wasn't the villain. I just meant that sometimes when people are sick like that, they make bad choices, but it doesn't mean they don't care about you. Stop. Louder now. Her eyes were red. Not angry, wounded. And then she said something that cut deeper than the original comment. You wanted to hurt me. It wasn't screamed. It wasn't dramatic. It was observational. I felt heat rise up my neck. That's not true. You said it when you were mad at me. There was no good answer to that. Mark appeared in the doorway again, like some kind of silent referee who already knew how this would go. Lauren, he said, that warning tone again. I stepped back, but I was already defensive. I'm trying to explain. She doesn't need you explaining, he said, firmer now. She needs space. That word again. Space. Like I was some kind of emotional contaminant. The next morning, Mark told me something new. Tessa relapsed, he said quietly. Officially. Her mom called me. She's back in treatment. So it was true. The facts were true. But hearing it confirmed didn't feel like vindication. It felt like acid. Because now Ava knew something real and awful, and the first time she heard it was from me during a math fight. That night, Tessa texted Mark nonstop. Not about Ava, about me. She had no right. She's trying to turn my daughter against me. She's jealous. She wants to replace me. Mark showed me the messages. I laughed, sharp and humorless. She's been gone for weeks. That doesn't matter, he said. She's still her mom. Then the real escalation started. Tessa sent Ava a long, emotional text about how sometimes grown-ups lie when they're angry, and how no one understands what we've been through except us. Ava read it in her room. I heard something crash against the wall. Later I found out it was the little ceramic lamp on her desk. Shattered base, crooked shade. She didn't scream. She just broke something. That night, she refused dinner, locked herself in her room, wouldn't come out. Mark knocked gently for almost an hour, and I stood in the kitchen staring at that broken lamp on the counter, thinking about how quickly things can fracture. By the weekend, Mark made a decision without me. From now on, he said carefully, anything about her mom comes from me. I stared at him. I live here. I know. That's not what this feels like. He didn't answer that. Instead, he added, and Lauren, you can't contact Tessa. I blinked. I haven't. Don't. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a boundary. And that's when something ugly started blooming in my chest, because I'd been the one absorbing Ava's moods for 4 years. I'd been the one smoothing over missed birthdays and empty seats at recitals. I'd been the emotional shock absorber every time Tessa disappeared. And now I was being benched. Ava stopped asking me for help with homework. She stopped telling me about school drama. When she needed something, she went straight to Mark. Even physically, she flinched a little if I reached to brush her hair out of her face. Mark noticed. He didn't say it, but I could see him watching me, evaluating, like I'd become unpredictable. And the worst part? I still believed I wasn't wrong. I just said it at the wrong time. But the house doesn't care about technicalities. It just knows something's broken. And I can feel Tessa circling now. Not physically here, but closer. Like she smells blood in the water. Tessa didn't just circle, she detonated. The first sign was subtle. Ava came home from school with red eyes and wouldn't tell either of us why. Mark finally got it out of her after dinner. Tessa had called her during lunch, not during the approved Sunday call window, not through Mark, directly. I borrowed a friend's phone, she'd apparently said. I needed to hear your voice. Borrowed. Right. Ava told us Tessa cried the entire time, told her she was fighting for her, and that some people in that house want you to hate me. Didn't say my name, but she didn't have to. Then she asked Ava if I'd been mean. That word. Mean. Ava didn't answer Mark when he asked what she said. She just shrugged and went upstairs. Mark's jaw tightened in that way it does when he's trying not to explode. I told her not to contact Ava outside the schedule, he muttered, already typing a text. But Tessa didn't respond to his text. Instead, she showed up. Saturday afternoon, unannounced. I was in the kitchen when I heard tires screech in the driveway. Not normal parking. Aggressive. I looked out the window and saw Tessa's old silver Honda crooked across the curb like she'd forgotten how to brake. She got out too fast, hair a mess, oversized sunglasses on like she was hiding from paparazzi instead of her own reflection. Mark stepped outside before she even reached the porch. I followed anyway. I don't know why. Pride? Instinct? She didn't even look at him first. She looked at me. So you're telling my daughter I chose drugs over her? She shouted across the yard. Her voice was sharp enough that Mrs. Kellerman next door came out to water plants that absolutely did not need watering. Mark stepped between us. Lower your voice. No, she snapped. She humiliated me. You let her humiliate me. She didn't humiliate you, Mark said tightly. You relapsed. Tessa laughed, high, brittle. And that gives her the right to traumatize my kid? Ava was at the front window by then. I could see her silhouette through the curtains. Tessa saw it too. She rushed past Mark and up the steps, trying to open the front door. Locked. She pounded on it. Ava, baby, come here. Mark grabbed her arm. Not violently, just enough to stop her from shaking the handle again. Get off me, she screamed, twisting hard enough that her sunglasses flew off and cracked on the concrete. That's when she lost it. She started sobbing. Loud, dramatic. Collapsing onto the porch like gravity had betrayed her. Wailing that we were keeping her child from her. That I was poisoning Ava against her. And Ava. God. Ava opened the door. Mark told her to stay inside, but she stepped onto the porch anyway, barefoot. Tessa immediately switched tones. Soft, fragile. They're trying to make you hate me, she whispered, grabbing Ava's hands. I would never choose anything over you. Ava looked between her mom and me like we were two competing versions of reality. I said nothing. That's important. I said nothing. Mark told Tessa to leave or he'd call the police. She screamed that he wouldn't dare. Then she did something I didn't expect. She shoved him. Hard. Not enough to knock him down, but enough that it wasn't ambiguous. Mark went very still, and that scared her more than yelling would have. He pulled out his phone and actually dialed. That's when she snapped back to rage. She kicked the flower pot by the door, ceramic exploding into dirt and shards across the porch. She pointed at me and said, "You will never replace me." Then she sped off, tires squealing again. Ava stood there shaking. Mark went inside to comfort her. I stayed on the porch, staring at broken terracotta and spilled soil. Symbolic, right? Of course it was. Later that night, Tessa went nuclear online. She posted a vague but obvious rant on Facebook about toxic stepmothers who overstep boundaries and weaponize addiction. Tagged nothing. Named nothing. But our friends saw it. My sister texted me a screenshot. Ava saw it too. And when I gently asked if she was okay, she flinched and said, "Can you just stop talking about her?" Like I was the instigator. Like I'd started the fire. Mark had to email his lawyer Monday morning. Not for custody changes yet, but to document the porch incident. And he didn't include me in the email thread. That's when I realized something deeper than anger had settled in. He didn't trust me to not escalate. And maybe that was fair. Because part of me, an ugly, petty part, was starting to want Tessa to lose. Not just be wrong. Lose. And that's when the situation shifted from messy to dangerous. Because I don't think Tessa knows how to lose quietly. And I'm not sure I do either. The hook didn't come as a screaming match. It came as a letter. Certified mail. Thick envelope. My name spelled correctly, which somehow made it feel more deliberate. Mark was at work. Ava was at school. I was alone at the kitchen table when I signed for it. Inside, a formal complaint. Tessa had filed a motion claiming I was emotionally abusive and interfering with reunification. She requested that the court restrict my involvement in Ava's life and mandate that I not be present during any future custody exchanges. I read it twice, then a third time. Emotionally abusive. Because I said the quiet part out loud. Mark came home early again when I texted him a photo of the paperwork. He didn't yell. He didn't defend me. He just rubbed his face like the past month had aged him 10 years. "She's spiraling," he muttered. "No," I said, voice shaking. "She's strategizing." The porch meltdown wasn't random. The Facebook posts weren't random. The lunch call wasn't random. She was building a narrative, and I had handed her the opening line. That night, Ava overheard us arguing in the kitchen. Not screaming, but sharp, tight. "She's trying to paint me as a monster," I said. "She's trying to stay relevant," Mark shot back. "The court sees patterns. We have to stay calm." Stay calm. I laughed at that. Ugly, humorless. "She showed up and shoved you. And we documented it. She smashed the flower pot. And we documented it. She's calling Ava at school. Lauren," that tone again. The warning one. "Do not escalate this." The implication was clear. Don't be the unstable one. That word echoed in my head for days. Unstable. Because Tessa escalated again. 2 days later, my office manager called me into her office. "There's someone here asking about you," she said carefully. Through the frosted glass, I saw Tessa. In broad daylight. At my job. My stomach dropped so fast I thought I might actually faint. She wasn't screaming this time. She was composed. Too composed. Hair brushed. Makeup done. Holding a folder like she was there for a parent-teacher conference. "I just wanted to speak to you privately," she said sweetly when I stepped into the hallway. My co-workers were absolutely watching. "You have no business being here," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. She smiled. "You have no business telling my daughter I chose drugs over her." There it was again. Rewritten. Reframed. She wasn't the one who relapsed. I was the villain who traumatized a child. You need to leave, I said. I'm just concerned about Ava's emotional safety, she replied louder, enough for the office to hear. That was deliberate. My manager stepped forward. Ma'am, if you don't leave, I'm calling security. Tessa tilted her head like she was the reasonable one. See? Aggression. That's what I'm talking about. Security escorted her out. But the damage was done. By lunch, 3 co-workers had asked if everything was okay at home. That night, Mark lost it for the first time. She came to your job? He exploded. Yes. Why didn't you call me immediately? Because I was trying not to panic. He paced the kitchen, hands in his hair. She's trying to provoke something. She wants you to react. I didn't, I snapped. I didn't scream. I didn't touch her. That's not the point, he shot back. She's baiting you. And suddenly, I understood something cold and strategic. She wasn't trying to win Ava. She was trying to eliminate me. Legally, emotionally, socially. She wanted me to look unstable enough that Mark would decide I wasn't worth the chaos. And here's where the hook lands. Because I did something that night that I hadn't told Mark yet. While Tessa was being escorted out of my office, I noticed something. Her car. Parked illegally in the fire lane. With a cracked taillight and expired registration sticker. Small, petty, but visible. And I took photos. Not to slash her tires, not to scream, but to document. Because if she wanted to build a narrative about who was unstable, I was going to build a file. Calmly, quietly, systematically. No yelling, no Facebook rants, no porch theatrics, just receipts. And the first one was sitting in my phone right now. And for the first time since the math packet, I didn't feel defensive. I felt focused. She wanted escalation? Fine. But mine wouldn't be loud. Mine would be precise. And sweet. I didn't tell Mark about the photos right away. Not because I was hiding something malicious. Because I needed one thing that was mine. For 4 weeks I had been reactive. Defensive. Explaining myself. Apologizing for tone while Tessa threw gasoline on everything and lit matches with eyeliner-perfect hands. I was done reacting, so I started documenting. Every late-night call she made outside the custody agreement. Every Facebook post that referenced emotional abuse. Every screenshot Ava showed Mark where Tessa said things like, "Some people want to replace me." I didn't comment. I didn't confront. I just built a timeline. The cracked taillight photo? That turned out to be useful faster than I expected. 3 days after she showed up at my job, Mark got a message from Tessa's mother, Debbie. Apparently Tessa had been pulled over that same afternoon leaving my office. Expired registration. Suspended license. Suspended. Mark's face went pale when he read that. Suspended for what? I asked. He called Debbie. DUI. Not ancient history. 2 months ago. Relapse confirmed. And here's the part that made my hands go cold. She had driven to our house. She had driven to my job. She had been planning to pick Ava up for her next scheduled visit, with a suspended license. While in early recovery, while screaming about emotional safety, Mark sat down hard in the kitchen chair like his legs gave out. She can't drive Ava, he said. No, I said quietly. She can't. He looked at me then. Not angry, not disappointed, focused. She didn't tell me. Of course she didn't. That night Mark called his lawyer again. Not to attack, not to punish, to file an emergency motion restricting Tessa from unsupervised transportation until she could prove license reinstatement and stable treatment compliance. And for the first time since the math packet, I wasn't the center of the conflict. Facts were. When Tessa was served the temporary restriction, she imploded. She didn't text Mark, she FaceTimed Ava. Ava answered in her room. I heard the screaming through the wall. How could you let them do this? They're trying to erase me. That woman is ruining my life. Mark burst into Ava's room and took the phone. Enough, he said, voice colder than I've ever heard it. Tessa started sobbing immediately. The switch flip was instant. I'm sick and they're punishing me, she cried. I just want my baby. Mark ended the call. Ava threw her pillow across the room and screamed, "This is all your fault," at him. But she looked at me. Not him. Me. And that's when it finally hit. No matter how strategic I was, no matter how factual, no matter how calm, I would always be the easiest villain. That night, Ava locked her bedroom door. Physically locked it. Mark knocked for an hour. She wouldn't open it. Eventually, he had to use the small emergency key we keep above the doorframe, something we've never needed before. She was sitting on the floor back against the bed, shaking. Not hysterical. Shut down. Mark held her. I stood in the doorway and felt like I was looking through glass. Later, when Ava finally fell asleep, Mark turned to me and said something that felt like a crack forming in the foundation. "I need to know you're not enjoying this." I stared at him. Enjoying what? Being right. That question hurt more than anything Tessa had said, because part of me had felt vindicated when the DUI came out. Part of me had felt justified, and I hated that he could see it flicker across my face. "I don't want her destroyed," I said quietly. "I want her stable." Mark didn't answer. He just went to sleep in Ava's room that night. And for the first time, I realized something terrifying. My revenge wasn't loud, it wasn't dramatic, it was legal, and it was working. But the cost? The cost was Ava looking at me like I was the reason her mother was unraveling, and Mark looking at me like he wasn't sure anymore whether I was protecting the family or dismantling it. The shift didn't happen all at once. It was slower than that. Quieter, like mold growing behind a wall. After the emergency motion restricted Tessa from driving Ava, the court scheduled a review hearing. Nothing dramatic yet, just temporary safeguards, supervised exchanges, proof of treatment, proof of license reinstatement. Facts? Tessa couldn't scream at facts in a courtroom the way she could scream on a porch. So she found a new arena. Ava. The manipulation got subtler. No more explosive FaceTimes. No more public meltdowns. Now it was guilt. Long voice messages that Ava listened to under her blanket at night. "I'm trying so hard. I go to meetings every day. I can't believe they do this to me. I just need you to know I never chose drugs over you." That line. It was surgical, because it directly contradicted mine. Ava stopped yelling at me. That would have been easier. She just went cold. She started eating dinner in silence. Started closing her bedroom door even when she wasn't inside. Started asking Mark for things she used to ask me for. One afternoon, she needed poster board for a history project. She walked straight past me in the kitchen and texted Mark at work instead. I saw it over his shoulder that night. "Dad, can you get poster board on your way home?" Mark hesitated before answering. He glanced at me. And I hated that glance more than anything. Like I was a landmine he had to step around carefully. I tried something different. I stopped stepping in. No reminders about homework, no checking backpacks, no offering to drive her to practice. If Mark asked, I did it. Calmly, politely. But I stopped volunteering. At first, Mark didn't notice. Then he did. "You forgot to sign her permission slip," he said one Thursday. "You didn't ask me to," I replied evenly. His eyes narrowed. "You used to just do it." I thought I was overstepping. That landed, not explosive, but sharp. The next escalation came from Tessa again. She filed an amended statement claiming that the emergency restriction was retaliation for a pattern of emotional hostility in the home. She cited the math packet incident. She cited my tone. She cited Ava expressing fear of upsetting Lauren. Fear. That word made Mark go pale. "Ava never said she's afraid of you," he said, more to himself than to me. "Did she say she's not?" I asked quietly. We both went still. Because the truth was, we hadn't asked. That night Mark tried. He sat on the edge of Ava's bed and said gently, "Do you ever feel scared of Lauren?" I stood in the hallway again, that same outsider position. Ava didn't say yes, she didn't say no, she said, "I don't want her mad at me." That was enough. Mark didn't yell at me afterward. He didn't accuse. He just said something worse. I need this house to feel safe for her. I felt something collapse inside my chest. I have never touched her. I've never screamed at her. I've never… I know, he said quickly. I know that. But emotional safety matters too. Emotional safety. That phrase started appearing everywhere. In legal paperwork, in therapy intake forms, in conversations with the school counselor. Mark finally looped in. Him, not me. I wasn't included in that email thread either. Ava started therapy 2 weeks later. I wasn't invited to the intake. Just for now, Mark said, until things settle. Settle. Like I was sediment that needed to sink. And then came the night that made everything irreversible. Tessa had a supervised visit scheduled at a family services center. Ava came home afterward, quiet, eyes swollen. In the car ride home, Mark later told me, Tessa had hugged her and whispered, "Sometimes adults tell truths in cruel ways because they're jealous." Jealous. That word slid under Ava's skin. Because that night, for the first time, she said it out loud. You just hate her because she's my real mom. Not screamed, stated. And I realized something terrifying. Tessa didn't need to win custody, she just needed to win the narrative. And slowly, steadily, she was. Mark started sleeping in Ava's room more often when she had nightmares. Our bed felt larger, colder. One night, he looked at me across the kitchen and asked, "Do you even still want to be involved?" And that question cracked something final. Because I did. I did. But I was tired of fighting for a role that kept shrinking, so I said the worst possible thing. Maybe you should handle her from now on. And I meant it as self-protection, but it sounded like surrender. And in that moment, I felt the marriage tilt. Not because of a screaming match, not because of Tessa, but because the trust between Mark and me had thinned so much it couldn't carry weight anymore. And I could feel it snapping. The court hearing wasn't explosive. No dramatic custody reversal, no screaming in a hallway, just fluorescent lighting, paper stacks, lawyers using words like stability and continuity and emotional environment. Tessa showed up polished, sober-looking, calm. The performance of a woman rebuilding her life. She didn't glare at me, she didn't cry. She said in a soft, controlled voice that she was committed to recovery and only wanted a healthy co-parenting dynamic. That she regretted past mistakes. That she was concerned about hostility in the home environment. Hostility. That word again. The judge extended the transportation restriction until she reinstated her license and completed additional treatment benchmarks. Supervised visits remained in place. It wasn't a loss for her. But it wasn't a win. It was neutral. And that's when I realized something. My sweet revenge wasn't destruction. It was documentation. It was removing the chaos and letting her own instability speak. But revenge has collateral damage. When we got home, Ava didn't ask how court went. She asked if her mom cried. Mark said no. Ava nodded like that hurt. That night, she came into our bedroom for the first time in weeks. Not for me, for Mark. She curled up beside him and whispered, "Are you mad at Mom?" He said, "I'm not mad. I just want you safe." I lay on the other side of the bed, staring at the ceiling. I wasn't included in that sentence. A week later, something small but irreversible happened. Ava had a fever. Not dramatic, just 102 and miserable. For 4 years, that was my lane. I knew which pediatric urgent care had the shortest wait. I knew which brand of grape Tylenol she'd tolerate. But Mark handled it. He called out of work. He stayed up with her. He texted the doctor. I offered help once. He said, "It's okay, I've got it." And that was it. No fight, just reassignment. The house became divided by silence. Ava stopped flinching around me. She just didn't reach for me anymore. Mark stopped correcting Tessa's narrative out loud. He focused on logistics, therapy, schedules. We became roommates managing a crisis. The final crack came on Ava's 13th birthday. Tessa was allowed a supervised visit that morning. She brought a cake, homemade, crooked icing, effort. Ava came home smiling, genuinely smiling. And I felt something ugly twist inside me. Not jealousy of Tessa, jealousy of that smile. That night during our small family dinner, Ava blew out candles and said, "I hope this year feels normal again." Mark squeezed her shoulder. I swallowed. After she went to bed, Mark sat at the kitchen table for a long time. "We're not normal," he said quietly. "No," I agreed. He didn't look at me when he asked the next question. "Are you still happy here?" The honest answer was complicated. I loved him. I loved the version of Ava who used to ask me to braid her hair. But I was exhausted from being both accused and careful all the time. "I don't feel inside the circle anymore," I said. Mark nodded slowly. "I don't know how to fix that." That was it. No screaming, no broken plates, just acknowledgement. We tried therapy for a month. It felt clinical, like two adults reviewing a failed project. The therapist said something that stuck. Truth without consent can feel like violence. I thought about the math packet, about the moment I decided to win instead of protect, and I realized something awful. I had been right, but I hadn't been safe. For her. Or for us. 2 months later, Mark and I signed separation papers. No courtroom drama. No custody fight between us. The house stayed with him. It made sense for Ava. I packed quietly. Folded sweaters. Left the crooked photo frame on the wall. On my last morning there, Ava stood in the hallway. She didn't cry. She didn't hug me. She said, "Are you mad at me?" And that broke me in a way nothing else had. "No," I said immediately. "Never you." She nodded. Then she said, "I don't think you meant to hurt me." And for the first time in months, I felt something like grace. But grace doesn't rewind time. It just softens the ending. I left that afternoon, no slammed doors, no final speech. Just the quiet understanding that one sentence, one truth delivered like a weapon, had split a house that might have survived everything else. And the worst part? Tessa didn't win. I just stopped being part of the fight. And that cost me the family anyway. I moved into a one-bedroom apartment 15 minutes away, not across the country, not some dramatic new life montage. Just 15 minutes. Close enough to pass the grocery store we used to shop at. Close enough that sometimes I'd catch myself checking the school parking lot at 3:05 p.m. out of habit. The first week alone was strangely quiet. No slammed doors, no legal emails, no tension hanging in the air like humidity. Just silence. I thought I'd feel rage. I felt tired. Mark and I kept it civil, paperwork, logistics. The house stayed with him. It made sense for Ava's stability. That word again. We didn't drag it through court. No public spectacle, no social media meltdown. Tessa, interestingly, went quiet too. That's what happens when chaos doesn't get a reaction. Her license was reinstated eventually. Supervised visits transitioned slowly back to limited, unsupervised time. The court didn't give her a full victory, just structured opportunity. Structured, documented, monitored. My revenge never looked like fireworks. It looked